I started getting this overwhelming feeling of joy, like just pure, pure bliss. It's just happiness. Oh. And then right after that followed love. That feeling of love. The profound love. It was just so vast. That was the greatest surprise in my world. I actually live on. I actually live on. I am consciousness. I live on. My body is nothing. It was nothing. It was just, in the moment, these are the words that came to me. It was just a piece of meat on the ground, and I'm sorry to put it that way. And my form, that's all it was. I remember seeing blood was out of the wound. Like it was just like it was oozing out and oozing out. And I don't want to have anything to do with that anymore. It seemed like my consciousness was expanding and expanding and expanding. And what was opening up before me was galaxies. I'd see galaxies like pinpoints of light, and each one had a different shape, different size, and it was just opening up and opening up and opening up. And at one point I was overwhelmed. There was, I'll say, billions upon billions upon billions. I saw what, I'll use this term, the edge of the galaxy, but it's not an edge. There's not a barrier. There's not a defining point. What I saw was just, I'll say, potential. I don't have words. It's not something I can explain in terms of mass. It looked like light. Well, it was light and it was not light at the same time. So how do you define that? Like, it was potential of creation is all I can say. I did hear a voice which said, you must go back. Your time is not through. You are not done yet. There is more for you to do. You must go back. No. I didn't want to come back. No, I did not want to come back. And at that point, I also realized, because at the time I was married and I had a child, and he was only 2 years old, and I said, oh, they're going to be fine. I know they're going to be. They're coming to where I am now. They're going to be fine. So I'm not going back. So I snapped back into my body. Coming back to my form was excruciatingly painful. Oh God, painful beyond belief, because I was weightless. In my NDE, I was weightless. One thing that stood out so much in my NDE was that weightlessness. But I came back to my body and it was so heavy. What I experienced was ultra real. It's reality. And what I came back to was not real. And I was in a confused state. What I had experienced was so different than what I was expecting, because I was born into a Roman Catholic family. Within the religion itself, there's sin, there's judgment involved, and there's hell. I saw none of that, and I felt none of that. It was so far from my reality.
When I was finished downloading this information, I communicated to these beings that I was done. I was tired. I didn't have any interest in going back into my physical body. I wasn't interested in the physical world at all. And this decision was accepted. It was an assumption. It was known that this decision was entirely mine, and that whatever that decision was, it would be respected. These beings and I existed in a state of mutual respect, personal responsibility, and cooperative creation. They accepted my decision. However, they communicated to me that they would appreciate it if I would return to my body. They conveyed to me that my particular skills with energy would be useful at this time in the physical world. And they made a few suggestions of ways that I could put those skills to use. And these suggestions and explorations were things that I had not thought of before. So they reignited my interest in returning to the physical world. So not unlike when that friend called me up and said, hey, you want to go to Iraq? And I said, okay. These guys said, hey, you want to go back and do this? And I said, okay. So I guess leaping before looking isn't just a trait of my physical world personality.
And eventually, a being approached me who appeared to be female, although she said that was a form that she took in order to make it easier for me to relate to her. She looked like a human-ish female, nothing really clearly defined, but vaguely, human. She appeared to have long hair and, had a vaguely human shape and a vaguely female shape. But she again welcomed me with love, and it was love that I felt through me. It was really odd. I could feel that love was a force coming through me, and it was a welcoming, peaceful kind of thing. And she said, I'm going to be your guide for the next little while. I'm going to teach you about this place and what you need to know to take back into your own life so that you can make your life better and what you want it to be. And when she said, you're going to go back to your life, I just immediately said, I don't want to go back. I want to stay here with you. And she said, no, it's your mission, your purpose to go back. So we argued about that sort of for a little while, and eventually she explained to me that I had agreed to go back, that I wasn't meant to stay here, and that I had accepted that already prior to my birth.
How did you understand that?
She showed it to me from her own perspective. So she showed me myself in a very vaguely kind of spiritual form, and I knew it was me, agreeing to this with kind of a small council of other beings, agreeing to what I was going to do, but from her own perspective. So she was one of these entities or spiritual entities that was around me, but she showed me that whole scene from her perspective. She kind of put it right into my mind and into my heart. But I could also sense it from my own perspective as well. So I was beginning to remember. I saw it it was really odd. I saw it from both my own and from her perspectives. Hers was stronger. But as soon as she showed all this to me and I heard myself, here we would say I agreed to a contract, but it was really more of a verbal or a heartfelt contract. When I remembered that I agreed to that with my heart, then it was like, oh, okay, I guess I'm going to be going back.
When did you agree to this?
Before my birth into this body. Mm-hmm. So that's,
So when did you know that?
I only knew that during my NDE. I didn't remember it until the middle of kind of my near-death experience.
Right, okay.
So it was part of getting me to be okay with being sent back here was, you already agreed to do this. Here's what it looked like. See if you can remember that. And I did.
I was in hospital giving birth to my second child, and I don't really know exactly when it started. But I was in the process of giving birth. I was in a lot of pain, and I was very frightened. Even though it was my second child. And at some stage I did have an epidural anaesthetic, but as I say, I don't really know exactly when it started, but then suddenly I found myself travelling down a dark tunnel very, very quickly. It was dark all around me, and I could hear a sort of a whooshing sound as I was going, like as though the wind was in my ears, as if I was travelling very fast. And I was travelling towards a light. I could see a light in the distance. At first it was very small, and but I was travelling very quickly towards it. And as I got closer and closer, I was thinking, I must be dead, or I must be dying. It just seemed really rather astonishing, but it didn't bother me at all. I was just travelling very quickly towards this light. And as I got almost to the light, just as though I was in the very end of the tunnel before I got exactly to the light, I stopped. And I just started to think really clearly. I'm giving birth to a child at the moment, and I was thinking of, I had my other son at home who was about 2.5 and was rather difficult to look after, and I thought, oh, my husband couldn't handle that, and so I thought, I'd better go back. But then at the same time as going back for the children, I also knew absolutely that I'd go back for myself. I sort of almost had a sigh go through me as if, oh, all right, I'll have another go. I'll have another go at life. And so then, right from that instant, I just felt myself travelling back down the tunnel. And I woke up in the pain of giving birth and all of that sort of process. And that was basically what happened.
I was unconscious when I died, and I woke up when I passed. I woke up with a start, literally just being flung through the air. It was like a pop or a boing or a ping. It was very, very, very dramatic. And I'm floating through the blackness, the womb of creation, great term, and I was very much enjoying it. Encountered a massive spiritual being behind me, slightly behind me and up to my left, and I said, and now it's a party because there's somebody with me. I'm not alone. And this blackness, by the way, was very comfortable and comforting and enveloping. And the peace. People talk about the love, but as a highly anxious person, I've always struggled with peace. The peace. I thought about the Bible verse, the peace that passeth all understanding shall keep your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. I thought, this is what Paul's talking about, this peace. So the spiritual being's now with me in this, and I turned with a lilt in my voice, because, hey, I'm having a great time. And I said, and who are you? And the answer was, you. You are the image and likeness. I'm the original. And I thought, whoa, that would have been good to know back there, but that's awesome, and I do mean awe-inspiring great. But in several people say, oh, you wanted to come back, you weren't ready. Nope. I know for many reasons. One, I was ready. I really felt like I'd been granted early release for good behavior. I really did. I was like, I'm out at 59 years and change. It's over. I'm done. It was a fairly peaceful passing. Not my best day, but it had a good ending. And I'm done. And not to mention, I knew I had watched myself bleed for, an hour and a half. And I thought, what in the world am I going to go back to? I knew that did not look good how it ended. It really didn't. So I was very grateful to be, I was going home. That was a prevalent feeling. I am going home. I'm going home. I'm going home. And it was so powerful. And then ultimately I was taken. See, if he told me I was dead for more than 10 minutes, and they couldn't even do CPR, because you can't do CPR on somebody when they run out of blood. So for 10 minutes I had no oxygen to the brain, no blood to the brain. So it's kind of amazing. A 59-year-old woman comes back from a bleed out that severe. So I ended up in a white room. And instead of floating, I was on my feet. And it was a big room, and there was a door on the far end of it. And I was like, hey, I've been reading about NDEs my whole life. I know what that door is. Out of my way. I'm doing the door. Don't need to ask me twice. So I thought, I don't know if I have feet or legs. I don't know what's going on. But I perambulated toward the door with intention. And I was at the door, and I paused. And I said, is this the divine will for my life? And the answer was no, but. I'm on the but. What? And the answer was no, but. Whatever you decide. If you decide to go back, you decide to go forward. You go with all of God's love and mercy and grace and peace and care. And I thought, I'll take it. I'm going forward. I am done. I am done with this earth life. It has been a hard life. It's been a hard 2.5 years. I am done and done. So then as I'm lifting up my right hand to push through the door, and I think, oh, that's interesting. I'm right-handed in heaven. I'm right-handed on earth, right-handed in heaven. I thought, how cool is that? But I lift my right hand, and then I have an image of that RN who had been at my bedside when I was on that gurney in the ER. And in this image, that RN, from whom I had extracted a promise that she wasn't going to let me die, when I said, please don't let me, before I lost consciousness, I said, promise me you're not going to let me die. And she said, oh, honey, we're not going to let you die. We have many solutions for this. Well, an image is, I'm at that door in the white room ready to move on through. An image of that nurse comes to me, and I have a vision of her sitting on a stool in like a hospital storeroom, and she's holding her head in her hands, leaning forward and sobbing. And through her tears, she's saying, I promised that woman I wasn't going to let her die, and I lost her. And I'm like, oh man, that's real bad. And I think, crap. And then I think, well, you know what? Life's full of hardships, she'll get over it. And then, kinda, I did think that. And then it gets worse. And then I felt her pain somewhere here, which kind of annoyed me because I'm like, I don't have it here, I'm dead. And that's when it really hit me. I felt her pain. I felt that agonal grief that I had known for 2.5 stinking years. And I took, I just kind of took a pause, and I put my right hand at my side, and I said, if I die, it's going to ruin that nurse's day. And like that, I was back on that gurney. And as Ellyn and I have discussed, I was ticked off. I was like, Robert's Rules of Order, point of order. We have a first, a second, and a discussion phase. I'm not hearing any discussion. But I was back in that body in less than a second. And the nurse is in my face now. Lots of people in the room. Boy, it's a lot of people in that little room. Nurse is in my face, and she says, lovingly, she looks at me and she goes, what is your name? Rosemary. What year is it? 2018. Where are you? A crummy excuse for an ER. So that was my response. And that's when she goes, I'll have you know this is an accredited facility.
I remember that I was aware that I was awareness. So right now, if you were to realize, look down at your feet or your body, you can tell that you're looking out through a set of eyes. You are awareness through a set of eyes, but you have a body. You can look down and see your body. I was awareness looking out, but there was no body. So I was awareness viewing everything. And the most amazing part of it is there's no fear. There's no worry, there's no lack, there's no pain, there's no anger, there's no separation. There's only everything. There's oneness, there's love, there is pure, positive energy. It's just unlimited love is the best I can think to explain it. You know how when you slip down into a nice hot bath or a hot tub and you kind of go, this is amazing. It would be sort of that feeling would be the best I could describe it. Now while I was there, I had awareness of speaking to somebody. And that part I'm not sure if it was my higher self I was speaking to or if there was actually somebody else there I was speaking to. Because again, this was all in vibration. It's not visual, so you're not seeing people much like we see people right now. So I remember clear as day this conversation saying, you know what, I'm done, this is frustrating, I'm tired. I just remember my soul being very tired and I don't want to do this anymore. And we got to talking and I was like, you know what, no, there's a lot more to learn. I do have the hang of this, it's going really well. You know what, let me get back in there. I do want to go back. I'm not finished yet. I do have some work I can do. So I came back in. So coming back into awareness, have you ever had a dream where you're like, oh, I know I was dreaming, but I can't quite remember what happened? This was nothing like that. This I can remember clear as day, as if it happened just moments ago. I mean, clear as day. I can go to that space and time right now or anytime I wish to and remember it fully, experience it fully now. And it's recently been explained to me that I had that choice. I had that option to either come back remembering or come back not remembering, and I chose to come back remembering because all of this accident actually ended up being a really big spiritual awakening for me to help me in this what we call ascension of our human species. But the biggest point I really want to make about crossing over to the other side, there is no other side. There is no death. It really is like stepping out of a movie and walking into the next room. Sort of like our life right now is the movie. So when you go to watch a movie in a movie theater, you're very much into the movie. You're very much into what you're watching. You actually even feel like you're there sometimes. You're experiencing it. And then when it ends, the lights come on and you get up and walk out with your friends. You're like, oh, that was really fun. What a great movie. And then you go on about your life. Life is sort of like that. It really is like stepping from one room to another. Or when you're dreaming and you wake up from a dream, you remember sort of, oh, I know I was asleep and I know I was dreaming. And then you wake up from your sleep and all of a sudden you're aware of life again. It's very much like that. So life is the dream in that story. And when you cross over, when you wake up back into your wholeness, it's like, oh, I remember that was a dream. Not really, that was your life. And then you're back into your oneness, your wholeness. And that place is nothing but love. There really is no negative, no anger, no fear, no hate. We create all that here in this life. Meaning everything that comes to us is energy, and it's all just light. It's all love. We take that love and create our reality. So we bend that light into whatever it is we are witnessing and observing. So we actually create the fear, and that can be a whole nother video as well. But I really just wanted to stress the point that when you cross over or when you die, it's not scary. It's love, it's beautiful, and it's easy. And no matter how gruesome or painful or horrific it seems on this side, you actually don't experience that once you're through the other side. You don't remember those parts. At least I didn't. My mind actually didn't recall any of that. I had no pain. It was all very, very easy and just really lovely. It was really beautiful. I remember thinking this was actually so nice. I really struggled with the decision to come back because it was so great there.
So I am bigger and more expansive than what I thought I was. The body is like a coat, and I can leave it, and I can go home. It feels like home. It feels like we have returned to what we are made of. It is bliss. It is joy. It is total acceptance and no judgment whatsoever. It is being seen for everything you are, everything you've done, everything you've thought, and being accepted and understood and loved for that. Even all those things, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly, even all those things that you really wish no one would ever figure out that you had that thought, it knows. And I met with beings of light who were sort of the personification of this love, who just embraced me and surrounded me in this total acceptance, this total love. And I found myself saying, I'm not going back. They were about 15 feet tall. And I felt in a way like I was arguing with them because I was absolutely sure I was not going to go back and nobody could make me because it's nasty here. People are mean to each other. There's no love. What we think of as love is such a mild version, watered down version of what I experienced at home and what we'll all experience at home. It was like, you know, and trying to do anything is like walking through hip-deep peanut butter. You know, you can't get anything done. You know, that instant manifestation just doesn't work down there. Sometimes you have to wait for years for something to manifest. By that time, you forgot you wanted it to manifest. You know? It's like, oh, what's this? Oh, yeah, 15 years ago, I wanted to do that. Oh, too late. So I'm standing there going, I'm not going back and you can't make me. And they weren't arguing. because they're all loving in their acceptance, total acceptance and understanding. And they said, you can do anything you want. Now, some people get told they have to come back. I was given a choice. Obviously, I made the wrong one, but or from one perspective anyway. And so they said, but let us remind you why you chose that life and why you chose all of those nasty, awful things that you experienced in that life that apparently felt like they had no meaning or punishment. But let us just remind you. Then you can choose, because you are a divine, powerful being with free will. And then I woke up in the emergency room. And I couldn't remember what they reminded me of, but I remembered that I had had a choice, and somehow I had really gotten it wrong. And I said, expletive, why am I here? And a nurse came over and she said, you were in a car accident, dear. I said, no, that's not what I mean. Why am I here? Well, you're in the hospital because you were in a car accident. And I said, never mind. And I kind of went, here.
And I saw this light farther away that kind of looked like a sun. And he very quickly said, do you want to go there? And I said, yes. And my soul just flew towards this light. And as I got closer to that light, everything that had been painful in my childhood, the poverty, the neglect, the emotional abuse, all of that seemed to wash away. That wasn't your fault. You're loved, you're perfect, you're fine. You're a child of God, you are loved completely. Earlier in the near-death experience, I had heard, be like a little child, and at that moment, I felt like a little child. I felt like I was loved deeply by God. Nothing could harm me. I felt completely free, and I didn't want to leave that realm because you can't imagine that love. It's so intense, and we don't feel anything like it here. We feel glimpses of it here. Loving a child, loving your parents, loving, your spouse, it's all just it's not the same. This is complete. And those are just pieces is the only way I can describe it. And that love just boomed through me. I felt people's prayers trying to pull me back. So people always ask, well, what if you pray for someone and they die? They still hear it. It's like my soul heard that I was in surgery and they were trying to get me to stay. And I remember thinking, that's sweet, but I'm really fine. I'm safe. I'm taken care of. And the closer I got to God, the more I thought, I don't want to go back. This is not for me. I want to stay here because I've never felt this good. There is nothing to compare to this. I want to get closer and closer to this all-knowing love. But at some point, I was stopped. It was like there was a barrier. And I felt this booming voice, and people always say, well, is a voice masculine or feminine? It was booming. That's all I know. It just kind of rattled inside of me as if the voice was talking through me, and the voice said, look down. And then suddenly I saw like a place on earth, and there was this river. I saw it as a metaphor. This was the river of life. And I was also given a message that I was going to teach, and that mission has been incredibly powerful. God was right. I actually teach at a college called Trinity River, and out of many of the classrooms, you look out the windows and there's a river. I take my students to go meditate down by the river. So from what I felt in my near-death experience, I was given a life mission to teach and to remind students to turn on their lights. When I was in that realm, this seemed like a metaphor, like very easy to do. You just come down to earth, you teach, and you remind people to be their best self and to be open to light and whatever you want to describe light as. Since I'm an English professor, I try very hard to describe what I saw with words, but how can you describe this light that comes up at you and fills you with a feeling of peace? I was told that I was going to go back and teach. And I argued with God because, I wanted to make money. And growing up poor, I was like, no way. And when I said that, God kind of hurled me back into my body, and it was like this darkness took over. And the first thing I remember is, when you're outside of surgery, they ask you your name, and my throat felt dry. But I had read about near-death experiences, so I knew what happened to me. And I also knew that I wasn't just in my body. Like, this massive experience had just happened, and I was having trouble feeling like all of me was in my body. My energy was expanded. And so I thought of myself in third person. They asked me several times, what's your name? And I said, her name is Tricia. I guess I have to come back and be her, but in my mind, I was like, I'm so much more, like I'm not just this physical body. I'm a consciousness that touched something so much more than this particular body. And I was kind of sad to be in this broken body, to know that all those emotional wounds were healed in the presence of God, but now I still have to get along with these family members, and I still have to process what happened in my life. And I remember some sadness about having to come back to being me, because it was a lot more fun to be connected to God and connected to everyone.
After all this amazing time, he looks at me and he says, look, you have to go back. And I'm looking at him and I said, no, I don't think so. I really like it here. He's like, no, you got to go back. It's not your time. And I'm looking at him like, no, I want to stay. And then I felt this tugging, like in my chest, but coming from my back. And I started being pulled. And I went back into my body. I opened my eyes, and the doctor that was doing CPR, she kind of got surprised, and she kind of lifted her head back a little. And then I went right back to my father, and I was in this space again. And he's looking at me, he says, no, you really don't get it, you have to come back. And he said, look, this is what we're gonna do. So we kind of started to structure a deal in heaven. And he said to me, look, when it's your time, I promise I will come and get you. And I looked at him and I'm thinking, wow, what an amazing deal that is. How could I say no? And so I accepted that. And I went back. When you have your experience of dying, you get this interconnectivity. You feel like you're connected to everything. So that sense of oneness is really profound. When you come back into your physical body again, you feel that sense of separation. So there's something about being in body that makes us feel like we're independent of the rest of the world. It's really soothing, eye-opening, and it's very calming. It's a calming feeling that it permeates through you to know that everything is as it should be, in a sense, right? Everything's working towards a goal, and that goal is well beyond what we may ever know, but it's still doing it.
I'm on the other side, and I'm around all these other beings, and I'm just saying, this is absolutely blissful. I could spend the rest of eternity parked right here doing just exactly what I'm doing. Wonderful place. And about that time I really got that set in my head, I felt somebody grab the arm that I no longer had. I left my body behind, and I feel somebody grab my arm and pull me and throw me to the surface of the water. I didn't have time to sit and ponder whether or not I'd like to go. And if you'd have asked me, a couple of minutes later, I'd have looked at you and said, I didn't want to go. This was not my idea. It appeared that it was somebody else's idea. Now, I do believe, in fact, it was my idea, but it's a greater self. It's part of your subconscious, that which you are not conscious of while you're here, but it is part of you. And it's actually the larger part of you. So I do believe that you choose to come back. I don't think you're pushed into it. And I don't think anybody on the other side is telling you, this is what you need to do next. I'm on the other side. I'm at source. Everything's wonderful, and somebody grabs my arm.
As I started to feel really comfortable, I felt like my body was just expanding, and I was feeling the safety. I was feeling like great waves of love, and everything became light. And I remember I was lying down, and I just felt like my whole being was expanding and expanding in this amazing love where I felt completely safe, like nothing else that I had felt before. And like there was nothing to do, and I just was kind of taking it all in. And it was such a deep contrast from the fear and the anxiety and the constriction that I had felt minutes before, that I just completely took it in, and I just felt amazing. It just felt like it was clouds, like a very misty white all around me, with these beings around me felt very held and contained. And I just wanted to lay there and be in that. There was no urgency. There was nothing at all that I needed to do. It was just taking it in and expanding in this amazing, unconditional love and light. In this light, I just felt like it was all light. Like my being was all light and I was light, and there was no difference between the light that I saw and myself. And there was really no distinct boundaries. And as I just laid, taking this in and expanding in this light and love, I don't know really how much time. It seemed like I was there for a while. And after a while of just experiencing this peace, I heard a voice from behind me, from above me, saying, "You need to go back." And at that time, I was not very excited about hearing that. And telepathically, I kind of communicated to what I felt was the voice of God that I did not want to go back, that I didn't want to go back, that I just wanted to feel this love. This is where I belonged. I felt that this was really home to me in many ways. This is what felt good. And I voiced that in my mind. And then I heard that this voice said, "It's not your time. It's not your time yet. You have to go back." And so I was very shocked. And at that moment, I felt very disturbed, because I felt like I was going to lose this amazing feeling of light and love that I had not experienced in the earthly plane. And so for me, I was very distraught by this. I experienced the earthly plane as a place of fear and a place of constriction. And it was almost like going back to that first experience of that space of darkness that I moved through. It was almost like I had been told, this is where, you have to go back to this place. And that's what I interpreted it as. And that's what I felt was happening. And so I did, because I'm here. And so I did. I returned, and as I was coming into my body, I felt deeply abandoned. I felt deeply betrayed. I felt deeply disturbed by having to come back and be in this plane, because I didn't want to lose that love. I didn't want to lose that feeling and that light. And when I was coming back in, I could see myself coming kind of back into my body, and I could feel this dense veil of darkness, of constriction, and of fear on the planet, almost like a dark cloud. And all I could say is I didn't want to come back.
Turned my attention to where I was really supposed to be going, which was to my board. So my board was made up of 3 souls. One soul felt really tall and was very, the word I'm looking for, he was a very experienced soul. And then 2 souls, one on each side of the middle soul, who were talking to me about my life here on earth. And I get the sense that I was like slamming my hand on the table. It was a very business meeting, and it was talking about me coming back. And at that point, I was feeling like I didn't want to come back. And so they were showing me things that I had done in life and things that were still left for me to do. And one of the biggest things for me to do was to be here for my daughter, who at the time was only 4. So after having this conversation with my board that takes place in your brain, because you don't sit and talk back and forth with them, I was then slammed back in my body. Love. Yeah, that's why there was such a fight at the board, because I wasn't going to come back. I wasn't going to come back and do life. Life is hard. Life can be really tough. We don't have the kind of love here on earth that we have over there. And I just wanted to stay home. I was home. I knew it was home. No doubt about I went home. And so I was actually felt like I was being asked to leave home. I was being kicked out of my home to come back here. Now, I have been told, and in some cases, looking back now, because it has been about 10 years for me, that we choose to come back. But when I first came back, it was very difficult for me because I felt forced.
And after that, I just felt him. I didn't see his face. I didn't see his figure, his shadow, or anything like that. But I felt him get on a knee and give me a hug. And it was like the biggest, I felt real arms around me. And I was wondering, can I just go with you now? Like, I don't really want to go back where I was. I felt so much love. And I said, well, let me get perfect. I don't deserve to be in your presence right now. Let me go back and live, get perfect, and come back. He's saying, no, I love you how you are now. I was thinking the whole entire time, what am I supposed to tell people? They're not going to believe me. They're going to doubt me. They're going to think I'm crazy, like a real life crazy person. But then that's when he says, go and tell everyone that I love them. Next thing you know, I'm up in the air. I see this big cloud that was in a circle shape. If I were to cross that, I would probably have went to like heaven or something like that, or paradise, whatever you may call it. I literally see angels covered around me, like everywhere. But there was two, they felt so familiar, and I paid more attention to these two. So one was on my right side, one was on my left side. The one on my left side, I didn't really see his face much because there was a bunch of light, and it was so bright I couldn't stand it. It was a lot of light. And the first thing I thought when I looked over at that one was, if I went back right now, most of the city would be destroyed because there's so much light. So it's like they're not allowed, those angels particularly, they're not allowed to step on this earth. The one on my left says in a stern voice, like, are you sure you want to go? Like he was sort of like upset. He wasn't mad at me. He was just mad at that he had to see me go through this. And then the one on my right side was very soft spoken. And he says, you have so much to do for so many people. So then I look at the left side and he said, look down. And like a camera, it zooms in to the floor and I see my body there laying on the floor. The paramedics are over me and the friend I was with is over to the left-hand side on her phone. And I'm saying, how can I look all the way down there at my body? I see my literal body laying there. How can I really see myself and the paramedics, but I'm right here with you guys? How does that happen? And they say, because this really does happen. So they said, now, do you want to stay or go? So after hearing the one on my right say, I have so much to do for so many people, I knew I wasn't going to understand it yet, but I just said, you know what? I'm going to go back. So in the snap of a finger, I guess I was back in my body because I woke up about 3 days later in the ICU. And the first thing I seen when I woke up was the nurses like, oh my God, he's up. Oh my God, he woke up. He's such a miracle. And they start calling me Miracle after that.
The same circular shaped diameter as the tunnel, I could see it opening out in front of me, like standing in almost like in a cave entrance. I could see, looking out from this entrance, green fields, meadows, fields opening up before my very eyes. As I looked at it, like a new planet, I could see a crystal clear stream working its way through. It was like Earth, but untouched, you know what I mean? A totally new Earth. Every single part of me's gone, I've made it. Somehow, on the skin of my teeth, I have made it. I mean, I knew that somehow I belonged here. It was like I knew I was home. I was wondering, why on earth wasn't I born here in the first place? Why was I born on this miserable planet? Why? Because you must be born again of the Spirit of God. You must have a rebirth and you're in a man to enter into here. But I'm standing here not realizing that's what had happened in the ambulance, that prayer, I'd actually had a rebirth in that prayer, that deathbed prayer. I had no idea that God had heard that and actually moved upon my spirit and washed my inner man as white as snow, crystal clear. As I'm standing there looking in, all I want to do is explore. I mean, half of my feet won't touch the ground. I can see the pasture had the same life force that was upon the presence of God emanating right through it. I knew if I stepped on it, it would spring back. The light is like everything was giving off life. As I started to move in, his presence came right back in front of me and blocked the way. He asked me this question. He said, Ian, now that you've seen, do you wish to go in or do you wish to return? I thought, return? What for? I wish to go in. He didn't move. I said, I have no one to return for. I'm a single man. I am not married. I have no children, or none that I know of. Please allow me in. He didn't move. Because I thought if God, knew my life, he'd know that maybe I've fathered some child illegitimately. I thought maybe I've wrecked some young girl's life. And God knows that. He wants me to go back and father that child. And when you're standing before God, you're not some big smart aleck or mouthing off. You just know He can see you, and you just want to be right. I mean, I thought maybe I've done something wrong. I've got to go back. As I stood there, He didn't move. I said, God, I don't owe any money. Please allow me in. No mortgage, no debt. Still nothing. I said, in my life, no one's ever loved me. No one in my life has ever truly loved me. Your love has touched my heart. I've never felt such pure love. Can I stay here? I have no desire to go back. Everyone wants to manipulate you, control you, hidden agendas, strings attached. But your love and acceptance is the most pure thing I've ever found in my life. No one's ever cared for me like that. No one's ever loved me like that. I have no one to return for. He didn't move. So I thought, then permit me to say one last thing, goodbye cruel world, and I was going to take my chances and try and step through the light and hope that God wouldn't stop me. As I looked back to do that, directly behind me, God showed me a vision of one person who loved me, one person who not only cared for me and accepted me, but had prayed for me all the days of my life. As I looked at her, I saw my mother in a clear vision right behind me. The moment I saw her, I thought, man, if I am dead, what's going to happen if I do step through? If I do step through, could I tell my mum that I made it? Could I communicate with her from this place? I thought, I don't know. I don't want to risk it. I thought, if I am dead and I step through, will my mother have any idea that in that ambulance I prayed? Will she have any idea that I gave my life to God and that God could forgive me? And I thought, no, she'll think a heathenistic son went straight to hell. She'd have no reason to believe I'd pray. Why? My lifestyle is completely antichrist stuff. As I stood there, I thought, God, I wish to return for my mum. I've led such a selfish life. I want to return and tell her what she believes in is real. If I come back, I'll find, you know what I mean, if I go back, I'll find out where this place is, and I'm coming back whether anyone believes me or not. I mean, whether anyone believes me, I don't really care. I know if I died right now, I'm out of here. I'm going to go straight up into His presence, because I know that I've made peace with my Maker. I know that He has forgiven me, accepted me, and I know that He'll take me back into His presence.